I'm an ophthalmologist at Meridian Vision Center in Asheville, North Carolina, or at least I was, until I submitted my resignation 3 months ago. You can call me Dr. Alexander Whitmore if you want. Though most people in the ophthalmology department just called me the retina specialist. During my 21 years there, I've seen everything you can imagine in ophthalmology: retinal detachments that left patients blind in minutes, aggressive glaucoma that slowly stole sight over decades, macular degeneration that reduced the world to shadows, traumatic eye injuries from car accidents and workplace incidents, diabetic retinopathy that painted blood across the back of the eye like abstract art, congenital disorders that left children navigating a world of perpetual darkness, and every kind of vision loss the human eye can endure. I've performed emergency surgeries at 3 in the morning to save someone's sight, delivered devastating diagnoses to patients who would never see their grandchildren's faces, and witnessed the incredible resilience of people learning to live without one of our most precious senses. But what I'm about to tell you about is the one case that made me question everything I thought I knew about human vision, and ultimately led me to leave the profession entirely. Meridian Vision Center is a premier ophthalmological facility serving western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the morning fog often shrouds our 7-story medical complex in an almost ethereal mist. It's a cutting-edge medical institution with specialized departments that handle some of the most intricate retinal surgeries, complex corneal transplants, challenging vision restoration cases, and experimental treatments in the Southeast. The center houses advanced diagnostic equipment worth over $15 million, OCT scanners that can map the retina in microscopic detail down to individual photoreceptor cells, fluorescein angiography systems that trace blood flow through vessels thinner than human hair, wide-field imaging systems that can photograph 80% of the retina in a single capture, electrophysiology equipment that measures the electrical responses of retinal cells, and surgical suites equipped with the most sophisticated vitrectomy machines and laser systems available to modern medicine. The building itself reflects our commitment to cutting-edge vision care. Floor-to-ceiling windows provide natural lighting that's carefully filtered to protect sensitive diagnostic equipment, while the interior design uses colors and patterns specifically chosen to be visually comfortable for patients with various eye conditions. Our waiting areas feature artwork selected by vision researchers for its therapeutic effects on different types of visual impairment, and even our elevator music is chosen based on studies showing certain frequencies can help reduce the anxiety that many patients experience when facing potential vision loss. During my time there, I performed over 14,000 comprehensive eye examinations, conducted more than 4,000 retinal surgeries, ranging from routine vitrectomies to experimental procedures that pushed the boundaries of what was technically possible, and consulted on cases where the line between what's medically explainable and utterly impossible becomes disturbingly unclear. I specialized in complex retinal disorders, the kind of cases that other ophthalmologists across the region would refer to our center when they encountered something beyond their expertise or comfort level. Patients would travel from across the Southeast, seeking second opinions on diagnoses that seemed hopeless, surgical interventions that required techniques so delicate they bordered on microsurgery artistry, and answers to visual symptoms that defied easy explanation or conventional treatment approaches. I had treated patients with Stargardt disease who were losing their central vision in their 20s, individuals with proliferative vitreoretinopathy, where scar tissue was literally pulling their retinas apart, people with rare genetic conditions like Leber congenital amaurosis, where the photoreceptors never developed properly, and victims of severe ocular trauma, where we were essentially rebuilding their visual system from damaged components. The center's reputation for handling the impossible attracted medical mysteries from across the region, patients with rare inflammatory conditions that caused their immune systems to attack their own retinas, individuals who had suffered severe chemical burns that should have destroyed their vision permanently, but somehow retained light perception, cases where patients reported visual experiences that didn't correlate with their measurable visual function, and conditions so rare that fewer than 100 cases had ever been documented in medical literature. In my 2 decades at Meridian, I thought I had encountered every possible variation of how the human visual system could malfunction, adapt, fail, or occasionally surprise us with its resilience. I had seen patients with no measurable vision navigate their environment with uncanny precision, individuals with perfect 20/20 acuity who reported debilitating visual disturbances, and cases where the subjective experience of vision seemed to operate independently of the objective measurements we could obtain with our sophisticated equipment. My colleagues often joked that if a case was weird enough to stump 3 other ophthalmologists, it would inevitably end up in my examination room. I took pride in this reputation, viewing each unusual case as an intellectual challenge and an opportunity to expand the boundaries of ophthalmological knowledge. I published papers on rare conditions, spoke at medical conferences about unusual presentations of common diseases, and mentored residents who would go on to become specialists themselves, carrying forward the tradition of approaching each patient as a unique puzzle to be solved. The case I'm about to tell you about didn't start in my office, or even at our facility. It began on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday morning in March 2019, in a small optometry clinic, about 60 miles away in the mountain town of Brevard, North Carolina. The initial examination was conducted by Dr. Sarah Chen, a competent and experienced optometrist who had been practicing routine eye care in the area for over 15 years. She had built a solid reputation for thorough examinations, appropriate referrals, and the kind of careful attention to detail that made her popular with both patients and the specialists who received her referrals. Dr. Chen had seen her share of unusual cases over the years, patients with floaters that turned out to be early signs of retinal detachment, individuals complaining of halos around lights who were developing glaucoma, people reporting flashing lights who were experiencing posterior vitreous detachments, and the occasional case of someone convinced they were going blind, who actually just needed their first pair of reading glasses. But nothing in her decade and a half of practice had prepared her for what she would discover during what should have been a routine vision screening for a new patient who had recently moved to the area. The patient's name was Isabella Rosewood, a 34-year-old elementary school art teacher who had relocated to Brevard 6 months earlier from Charlotte, seeking a quieter life in the mountains after going through what she described as a life-changing divorce. Isabella was an attractive woman with shoulder-length auburn hair that seemed to catch and reflect light in an almost luminous way, and what everyone who met her commented on Mike's unusually striking green eyes that seemed to shift between emerald and sage, depending on the lighting and her mood. Those who knew Isabella described her as exceptionally creative, deeply intelligent in an intuitive rather than academic way, and someone who seemed to notice visual details that others consistently missed, a quality that made her not only an excellent art teacher, but also someone who was perhaps more sensitive to subtle changes in her visual environment than the average person. Her students adored her because she could help them see beauty and artistic potential in things they had never noticed before, and her colleagues respected her ability to spot problems or opportunities that others overlooked entirely. Isabella's former life in Charlotte had been structured and conventional. Mites married to a successful but emotionally distant corporate lawyer, living in a suburban neighborhood where every house looked essentially the same, teaching at a large elementary school where creativity was often sacrificed for standardized test preparation. The divorce had been financially comfortable but emotionally devastating, leaving her feeling like she had been living someone else's life for years without realizing it. The move to Brevard represented not just a geographic change, but what she hoped would be a complete personal transformation. The small mountain town suited her artistic temperament perfectly, surrounded by the natural beauty of the Blue Ridge Mountains, with a community that valued creativity and individuality. Isabella had begun to feel like she was discovering parts of herself that had been dormant for years. She rented a small cottage with spectacular mountain views, found a teaching position at a school that encouraged innovative approaches to education, and had started painting again for the first time since college. It was during this period of personal renewal that Isabella began experiencing what she initially described to friends as enhanced visual awareness. She told her new colleagues that she felt like moving to the mountains had somehow sharpened her artistic eye, making her more sensitive to colors, textures, patterns, and visual relationships that she had never noticed before. At first she attributed this to the change in her environment, the cleaner mountain air, reduced stress from her divorce, and her renewed focus on artistic expression. However, over the course of several weeks, Isabella began to realize that what she was experiencing went far beyond improved artistic sensitivity. She was seeing things not hallucinations or imaginary objects, but additional layers of visual information that seemed to exist parallel to normal sight. The experience was subtle at first, like catching glimpses of movement in her peripheral vision that weren't there when she turned to look directly, but gradually, these visual phenomena became more prominent, more consistent, and impossible to ignore. Isabella had always been the kind of person who preferred to handle problems independently, but after 3 weeks of increasingly intense visual experiences, she decided it was time to seek professional evaluation. She was concerned that the stress of her divorce and major life changes might be manifesting in some kind of visual disturbance, or that she might be developing a medical condition that required immediate attention. She scheduled an appointment with Dr. Chen because the optometry clinic was conveniently located in downtown Brevard, and several of her new colleagues had recommended Dr. Chen as thorough and trustworthy. Isabella hoped that a comprehensive eye examination would either identify a simple explanation for her symptoms, or at least rule out any serious eye problems that might require treatment. When Isabella arrived for her appointment on that Tuesday morning in March, she appeared calm and articulate, though Dr. Chen noted that she seemed unusually observant of her surroundings, commenting on the specific shade of blue used in the waiting room walls, noticing details about the artwork that most patients never mentioned, and describing the way natural light filtered through the office windows with the kind of precision that suggested an artist's trained eye. During the initial consultation, when Dr. Chen asked Isabella to describe her symptoms, Isabella chose her words carefully, clearly wanting to sound rational and coherent, rather than like someone experiencing psychiatric symptoms. "It's difficult to put into words, doctor," Isabella began, settling into the examination chair with graceful movements that suggested someone comfortable in her own body. "For the past 3 weeks, I've been experiencing what I can only describe as visual layers that seem to exist alongside normal sight. It's not that I'm seeing things that aren't there. Everything in the regular world looks exactly as it should, but there's additional visual information that appears to be overlapping with ordinary vision." Dr. Chen listened carefully while making detailed notes, her expression remaining professionally neutral despite her growing curiosity about Isabella's unusual symptoms. In her 15 years of practice, she had heard patients describe various types of visual disturbances, but Isabella's articulate and thoughtful description suggested something different from the typical presentations she was accustomed to evaluating. "Can you give me some specific examples of what these visual layers look like?" Dr. Chen asked, beginning her preliminary assessment by checking Isabella's pupil responses with a pen light, noting that they reacted normally to light stimulus with appropriate size and symmetry. "That's perhaps the most unusual aspect," Isabella replied, her pupils constricting and dilating normally as Dr. Chen moved the light between her eyes. "It's not like seeing objects or shapes that aren't there. It's more like I'm perceiving additional information about things and people that are actually present. When I look at a person, for example, I see them completely normally, their physical appearance, clothing, facial expressions, everything you would expect. But simultaneously, I also perceive what I can only describe as patterns or energy fields that seem to surround them. Chen continued her initial evaluation, while Isabella spoke, checking her extraocular muscle movements by having her follow a penlight in different directions, observing that her eye movements were smooth and coordinated with no signs of weakness or restriction. These patterns you mention, are they consistent, or do they change? Dr. Chen inquired, now using her direct ophthalmoscope to get a preliminary view of Isabella's optic nerves and retinal blood vessels through her undilated pupils. They're constantly changing, Isabella explained, remaining perfectly still during the examination. Different people seem to have different baseline patterns, but these patterns shift and fluctuate based on what appears to be the person's emotional state, their level of health, whether they're being truthful or deceptive, and even what they seem to be thinking about. It's as if I'm seeing some kind of visual representation of their inner state that normally wouldn't be visible. Dr. Chen found this description particularly intriguing because Isabella was describing her experiences with the kind of detail and consistency that suggested either a genuine perceptual phenomenon or a very sophisticated delusion. The preliminary examination of Isabella's eyes showed no obvious abnormality. Her optic nerves appeared healthy, her retinal blood vessels showed normal caliber and appearance, and there were no signs of swelling, hemorrhage, or other pathology visible through the small pupil opening. Have you noticed these visual phenomena in other contexts besides looking at people? Dr. Chen asked, proceeding to test Isabella's visual acuity using the standard Snellen eye chart, starting with her right eye while covering her left. Yes, Isabella replied, reading the letters clearly and accurately, down to the smallest line visible. I see similar patterns around animals, though they're different from human patterns. Both plants and trees, there are these incredibly complex and beautiful visual structures that seem to extend beyond their physical boundaries. Even inanimate objects sometimes have subtle visual fields, though these are much fainter and less dynamic than what I see around living things. The visual acuity test revealed that Isabella had remarkably sharp vision 20/15 in both eyes, which is significantly better than the normal 20/20 standard. This level of visual acuity indicated that her eyes were not only healthy but functioning at an above average level, making it less likely that her symptoms were related to any conventional eye disease or refractive error. Dr. Chen proceeded with color vision testing using Ishihara color plates, finding that Isabella's color discrimination was perfect with no signs of the color blindness or color perception defects that can sometimes be associated with certain retinal conditions. When she tested Isabella's visual fields using confrontation testing, moving objects in from the periphery, while Isabella focused on a central target, her peripheral vision appeared completely normal, and perhaps even unusually sensitive. Your basic eye examination is completely normal, Dr. Chen told Isabella after completing the preliminary assessment. In fact, your vision is better than average, and I don't see any signs of eye disease, injury, or abnormality that could explain your symptoms. However, given the nature of what you're experiencing, I believe you should see a specialist who has access to more advanced diagnostic equipment and extensive experience with complex visual disorders. Dr. Chen was being appropriately thorough in her recommendations. While Isabella's eyes appeared healthy, based on the standard examination techniques available in her office, the visual phenomena Isabella was describing could potentially be related to subtle retinal conditions that required sophisticated testing to detect, neurological factors that were beyond the scope of routine optometry, or other medical issues that warranted specialized evaluation. I'm going to refer you to Dr. Alexander Whitmore at Meridian Vision Center in Asheville, Dr. Chen explained, beginning to write out the detailed referral paperwork that would accompany Isabella to her specialist appointment. Dr. Whitmore is one of the most experienced retinal specialists in the region, and their facility has diagnostic equipment that can detect conditions that might not be visible with standard examination techniques. If there's anything subtle happening with your retinas or visual system that could explain your symptoms, he'll be able to identify it, When Dr. Chen's referral reached my office at Meridian Vision Center, it was processed as a routine consultation for usual visual disturbances. My assistant Margaret scheduled Isabella's appointment for Tuesday afternoon, March 19th, 2019, a date that would fundamentally change my understanding of human vision. I reviewed Isabella's case the night before, reading Dr. Chen's notes about her patient reporting visual layers and energy patterns around people. My initial reaction was clinical skepticism. In 21 years of practice, I'd seen dozens of patients who reported seeing auras or supernatural phenomena that almost always had straightforward medical explanations: migraine auras, medication side effects, or early signs of neurological conditions. I approached Isabella's case with my usual methodical mindset: perform comprehensive testing, rule out all possible causes, and either find a treatable condition or refer appropriately. What I couldn't anticipate was that this examination would shatter every assumption I held about human visual capability. When Isabella arrived that Tuesday afternoon, I was struck by her unusual green eyes and the intense way she observed her surroundings. During our consultation, she described her symptoms with remarkable precision. "Dr. Whitmore, I'm not seeing things that aren't there," she emphasized. "I'm seeing additional information about people and things that are definitely present. It's as if there's a layer of visual reality that most people can't perceive." The basic examination confirmed Dr. Chen's findings. Isabella had exceptional 20/15 vision, perfect color discrimination, and normal eye movements. When I examined her retinas through the ophthalmoscope, everything appeared perfectly healthy. "We'll dilate your pupils for more comprehensive testing," I explained, administering the drops. While waiting for dilation, I decided to probe deeper into her experiences. "Can you describe what you're observing about me right now?" I asked. Isabella studied me with unusual focus. "You have a very structured pattern, primarily blue and white, with geometric elements, suggesting analytical thinking. But there are golden threads indicating genuine curiosity and compassion. The pattern extends about 3 feet around you and pulses with your breathing." Her description was remarkably specific and detailed, unlike the vague generalizations typical of patients reporting visual hallucinations. Once her pupils dilated, I began advanced diagnostic testing that would reveal something impossible. Using our optical coherence tomography (OCT) scanner, I took high-resolution images of Isabella's retinal layers. What appeared on the screen made me stop in complete bewilderment. Isabella's retinal structure exceeded every parameter of normal human anatomy. Her photoreceptor layer, Myas, where rods and cones detect light, showed organization and density 300% above normal ranges. Her ganglion cell layer displayed neural connections resembling a supercomputer network rather than standard retinal architecture. Most remarkably, Isabella had additional retinal cell types that don't exist in normal human eyes. These structures appeared to be specialized photoreceptors responding to wavelengths humans shouldn't detect: might's ultraviolet light, infrared radiation, and possibly electromagnetic fields completely outside normal vision ranges. "This can't be right," I muttered, recalibrating the machine and retesting. The results remained identical. Margaret, my assistant of 10 years, looked at the scans with amazement. "Doctor, I've never seen anything like this." I ran complete diagnostics on our equipment and tested a control patient. Everything functioned perfectly. Isabella's scans consistently showed impossible retinal structures and photoreceptor capabilities that defied medical understanding. The fluorescein angiography results were equally disturbing. When fluorescent dye circulated through Isabella's retinal blood vessels, they revealed vascular patterns organized with almost artificial geometric precision. Her retinal blood flow was 400% above normal levels, yet showed no signs of swelling or damage typically associated with increased perfusion. But the most shocking findings came from electroretinography testing minitus, measuring electrical responses from retinal cells exposed to light stimulation. Isabella's ERG responses fell completely outside normal human parameters, Her photoreceptors generated signals not only much stronger than normal, but responded to light wavelengths human eyes shouldn't detect. When I exposed her to infrared light, invisible to normal vision, her retinal cells generated robust electrical responses. When I tested her responses to polarized light, magnetic fields, and electromagnetic phenomena, her retinal cells consistently produced measurable electrical activity. Isabella's visual system was detecting and processing information completely outside the spectrum of human perception. Isabella, have you ever had eye injuries, surgery, or unusual medical treatments? I asked, reviewing results that contradicted everything I knew about vision. No, doctor, I've never had eye problems. My vision was always good, but these experiences only started about a month ago. Any exposure to unusual chemicals, radiation, or environmental factors? Nothing I'm aware of. The only change was moving to Brevard 6 months ago, but these symptoms are much more recent. I spent 2 more hours conducting every test available, consulting colleagues, trying to find rational explanations. Everything measured suggested Isabella possessed visual abilities that shouldn't exist according to scientific understanding. Her eyes detected light wavelengths outside human ranges and processed visual information with sophistication resembling advanced technological sensors rather than biological organs. The patterns she described around people appeared to correlate with measurable electromagnetic fields and infrared signatures normal vision cannot detect. As data accumulated challenging fundamental assumptions about human perception, I faced a career-defining choice: document these findings and risk professional reputation by presenting evidence contradicting established science, or rationalize away what I was observing. But there was a third, more disturbing possibility. Isabella represented genuine human evolution, someone who had developed visual capabilities exceeding normal species limits. This raised profound questions about other extraordinary abilities emerging in human populations and whether our understanding of human potential was far more limited than imagined. 3 days later, everything changed with a phone call that shattered my remaining certainties. Isabella had been arrested for what police described as impossible knowledge of criminal activity. She had walked into Brevard Police Station, providing detailed, accurate information about 3 unsolved crimes, including locations of hidden evidence no one outside investigations could know. When questioned about her information source, Isabella calmly explained she could see truth patterns around investigating officers, allowing her to perceive information they were concealing or had forgotten. Her accuracy was so precise police initially suspected criminal involvement, but her alibis were ironclad with no evidence connecting her to any crimes. The case attracted national attention from law enforcement and scientific communities. Isabella was released without charges after extensive testing by federal agencies interested in her apparent ability to detect information inaccessible through normal sensory channels. I submitted my resignation 6 weeks later. Officially, I cited pursuing other opportunities, but truth was Isabella's case had shattered my confidence in everything I thought I knew about human perception, consciousness, and reality itself. If Isabella could see electromagnetic fields, detect infrared radiation, and perceive information about people's thoughts and intentions, then our understanding of human sensory capabilities was fundamentally incomplete. I moved to Vermont, opened a general practice, deliberately avoiding cases involving vision, neurology, or unexplained phenomena. But I never stopped thinking about Isabella and implications of what I witnessed in those few examination hours. Isabella disappeared from public view 6 months later. Some reports suggested she entered government research programs studying extraordinary human abilities. Others claimed she moved to remote locations, avoiding attention her case generated. Wherever she is, Isabella's case continues challenging everything we think we know about human potential and perception. Her impossible visual abilities demonstrated aspects of human consciousness and sensory capability may exist far beyond current scientific understanding boundaries. mysteries. For me, Isabella's case serves as humbling reminder that medicine and science, despite advances, may only scratch the surface of understanding true human consciousness capabilities. It taught me some phenomena exist beyond our current ability to explain, measure, or replicate, and approaching such mysteries with humility rather than skepticism may be key to expanding human knowledge boundaries. The case of Isabella Rosewood will always remain the most unexplained and transformative experience of my medical career. A reminder that reality may be far stranger and more complex than we dare imagine. It forced me to confront the terrifying possibility that our understanding of human consciousness and perception represents only a tiny fraction of what actually exists in the vast mystery of human potential. 2 years after my resignation, I was living quietly in Vermont, running a small family practice, when I received an encrypted email that would haunt me forever. The sender was anonymous, but the message contained photographs that made my blood run cold. The images showed Isabella in what appeared to be a government research facility. She was connected to sophisticated monitoring equipment, her eyes open but completely white. No iris, no pupil, just luminous white orbs that seemed to glow with their own light. The accompanying text was brief but chilling. Dr. Whitmore, whose subject, IR, has undergone complete transformation. Visual capabilities now extend beyond physical spectrum into quantum field detection. She can see probability clouds, temporal fluctuations, and consciousness itself. The process appears irreversible. She hasn't spoken in 6 months, but her brain activity suggests she's processing information from multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. We believe she's evolving beyond human limitations. Thought you should know what your examination discovered. I tried tracing the email, contacting authorities, researching government programs. Everything led to dead ends. But 3 weeks later, I experienced something that confirmed my worst fears about what Isabella had become. I was hiking alone on a mountain trail near my home when I encountered a woman sitting on a boulder overlooking the valley. As I approached, she turned toward me, and I saw those same luminous white eyes from the photographs. It was Isabella, but transformed beyond recognition. Her auburn hair had turned completely silver, and her skin seemed to emit a faint pearl-like luminescence. When she looked at me, I felt as though she was seeing not just my physical form, but my thoughts, my memories, my entire existence laid bare. "Dr. Whitmore," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate from multiple dimensions, "you were right to leave medicine. What you discovered in me was just the beginning. Humanity is evolving, and some of us are becoming something else entirely." She gestured toward the valley below, and for a moment, I saw what she saw: the streams of light connecting every living thing, patterns of energy flowing between people, animals, and plants, and layers of reality existing parallel to our own. "I can see all of it now," she continued. "Past, present, future, the connections between all consciousness, the true nature of reality itself. But the price is losing what made me human. I remember you, your kindness, your search for truth. That's why I wanted you to know, your choice to walk away was wise." Before I could respond, she simply faded away, like morning mist dissolving in sunlight. I never saw Isabella again, but her final message haunts me daily. Somewhere out there, humans are developing capabilities that transcend our species' limitations, but at a cost that may strip away our humanity itself. I share this story not as entertainment, but as a warning. If Isabella was right about human evolution, we may be approaching a threshold where some of us become something beyond human recognition. The question isn't whether we're ready for such transformation, but whether we're prepared for what we might lose in the process. The case of Isabella Rosewood taught me that reality contains mysteries far beyond medical understanding, and that some doors once opened can never be closed again.